Welcome to the Fond du Lac Child Care County Network event. So first I want to thank everybody for coming. For those of you that know me, I am very passionate about early childhood education. I own a program here in Fond du Lac. But we really want to thank a lot of our sponsors here and all of our community members that put this event on tonight. It was pretty quick and last minute, but we have a great turnout and we appreciate you guys coming and showing support. So as I mentioned, my name is Angela and I'm the owner director of Lily Pad Learning Center here in Fond du Lac. We're licensed for 135 kids. And right now we have about 112, I believe, enrolled. So that's where we're at. I'm one of 33 providers here in our county. And that'll include family and group centers. And I have a lot of my staff and some family members here, so I appreciate everybody's support. I'd like to introduce Corinne Hendrickson. She's one of the people who inspired me to become an advocate. I blame her for a lot of this. But she's always willing to lend an ear and advice for me. So I'd like her to introduce herself and then we'll get started.
Hi, Corinne Hendrickson. I live in New Glarus. I've had a family child care for 18 years now. And 4 years ago, a colleague of mine who owns a group center in New Glarus, and I started WeCan, which is Wisconsin Early Childhood Action Needed. There's about 2,000 of us across the state now, and we welcome all people who care about children, which I believe should be 100% of our population. And yes, so thank you everyone for coming. This is a great turnout, and I hope that we have a great conversation and you learn a lot of things, and that most of all, you are ready when you leave to go advocate, or before you even leave, you have done an advocacy action, which we'll talk about later.
All right, so a few things. We do have a quick quote here. So a lot of the stuff might seem repetitive, but parents are staying home. They're not contributing to the economy. Their income is probably less, and then businesses don't have the access to the workforce. And when we're in such a workforce crunch, we see how that ripple effect really starts to compound upon itself. So this is from the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. So you're seeing that this is affecting multiple areas. We're going to do a quick video here in a second. This is going to explain why parents spend so much on childcare despite teachers getting paid so less.
Alicia and Craig needed an early care and education program for their 2-year-old son, Jake.
We will in a little bit.
Yeah, technologies. You might have to share a different screen. Yeah, share a different screen.
Alicia and Craig needed an early care and education program for their 2-year-old son, Jaden. Eventually, they found a suitable child care center nearby that offers a nurturing environment for Jaden and is open while they're at work. But it costs nearly $10,000 per year. That's more than a mortgage in most states. Even though they're paying the average price for childcare, it's a financial burden. And now they're expecting a second child. Meanwhile, Jaden's teacher, Sonia, is worrying about how to put food on her own table. Even though she has a bachelor's degree, she earns less than $15 an hour. In fact, more than half of childcare workers and nearly half of preschool and kindergarten teachers reside in families that utilize public assistance. Childcare is complex work that can impact children throughout their lives. Yet Sonia, like many early educators, doesn't receive benefits like health insurance and paid leave. So why do early childhood teachers earn so little when parents pay so much for childcare? There's a flaw in the system. Parent fees alone are not enough to fund quality early education. Let's look at the facts. Parents pay an average of $10,000 annually for center-based care. In certain locations, and depending on the age of the child, the average cost for licensed child care is even higher. Let's take a closer look at Jaden's child care center. He's one of 40 children attending full-time. Family payments equal $400,000 a year. About 12% goes to rent, utilities, and maintenance. 23% goes for classroom materials, food, and administrative costs. This leaves about $260,000 for personnel. Early care and education is labor-intensive and requires low adult-to-child ratios to ensure quality interaction. Jaden Center, open 10 hours a day, and 3 classrooms, and feeds at least 3 lead teachers, 6 assistant teachers, and 1 director. The remaining money doesn't allow for median salaries, let alone benefits. Parents can't afford to pay. Teachers can't afford to stay. Public investment is the way. We invest in education for older children. Why not for all children? Here's how we can advocate for more public investment in early education programs. Invest in early care and education as other industrialized nations do. If parents are charged, ensure no family pays more than 7% of their income on childcare. Ensure that all teachers have better compensation and workplace support. Those caring for our youngest should at least be paid on par with kindergarten teachers. Question your legislators and candidates about their response to these issues. So let's invest in our teachers and children. Together, we can make it right for children, their families, and their teachers.
All right, so that's a great summary, but as you guys all know, early childhood education and childcare providers are essential for a stable, functioning society and economy. Unfortunately, the economics just don't work for this, and we have 3 main challenges. It's going to be affordability, accessibility, and quality. It takes combined efforts federally with federal and state government and businesses to ensure that families have access to affordable, quality childcare to move our state forward. So for affordability, is it mentioned on there, they're spending $10,000. That's actually probably on the lower end. That video is slightly older, but parents can't afford the high costs that are needed to pay providers and teachers a livable wage. Right now, parents are paying more for childcare education than they would be paying for a college tuition. So that's really just unacceptable. My last center increase was about 10%. We have infant care roughly for $254 a week, and that's going to be an average probably in our community. While we're still receiving funding, it's just still not enough to maintain competitive wages to retain the staff without increasing the tuition. Once the funding runs out in June of 2025, I'm expected to raise my rates anywhere from 10 to 20%. That's just to maintain where our wages are at now. That's not going to be to give my staff additional increases, and they do deserve them. So as we increase it, it's really going to cause this just to be unaffordable for families, and only wealthy families are going to be able to afford this. Even those that do get state funding, which is about 8% in the state, they'll not be able to afford their co-pays. So it will price out our low-income families as well. And our middle-class families, again, it will be unaffordable. For accessibility, Wisconsin, it's over half of Wisconsin is in a childcare desert. And for Fond du Lac County, I feel like we're right on that. For every 1 spot that we have available, there's 3 children that are in line for needing that. So I think we're right at that for qualifiers, so, which is really sad. We, in order to have a more quality community, we do need to have places for them to go.
Sure. So to compare, Fond du Lac County, you have about 100,000 people in your county, and you have 33 regulated programs. My county is Greene County. There are 26,000 of us. We have 28, or we have 30. You have 3 more programs than us. That is a huge problem.
And I do bring this, it's my parents' waitlist binder. This is the waitlist binder for families trying to get into LilyPad. This is not a joke. These are literal families. And I see other programs smiling. I know those in Fond du Lac County probably have the same binder with the same families' names on it. So with that, they may currently not have care. They may be in another program that they're unhappy with. They may be in unlicensed or unregulated care. They may be hodgepodging it together with families, friends, and neighbors. Basically what I'm saying is this isn't enough options. Clearly these parents want something better for their kids, and it's our prerogative to do that for them as a community. So we want to do better for them. So the last thing is quality. In order to have high quality, we need to have high quality teachers. High turnover due to low wages is affecting quality across the board. When you keep consistency in classrooms, you're going to get more high quality teachers. Right now, so pre-pandemic, teachers are making $10.66 an hour. We're a few ways out of the pandemic. We are at $13.78 as a state average. That's unacceptable for teachers that are teaching our youngest youth. And I like to always remind people who aren't in the early childhood education field, imagine caring for 10 3-year-olds all by yourself. These may be perfect children, so 10 3-year-olds may not seem so demanding. But in what world do we live in that all 3-year-olds are perfect? So these could be challenging behaviors, children with special needs. These could be just typical children having bad days and having separation. Now you're doing all of this lesson planning, making sure you're meeting all your qualifiers, all for $13.78 an hour average. That is just not acceptable. The work we put in is worth more. So the other thing is we want our teachers to be educated. How hard is it for you to want to go back to school knowing that you're not going to make much more than $13.78 an hour? So it's really hard to want our teachers to be educated. Now, on that note, the majority, the video did mention, I believe the average is still 50% do have a degree in early childhood education. The majority of my teachers have some form of higher education, whether it's just a couple classes or degrees. So they are educated, but it's hard to expect them to continue that. So if we can overcome all these challenges and provide accessible, affordable, and quality care for all these, there's going to be lots of benefits to the children, the families, our communities, and the economy. So Corinne's going to handle some of our children benefits. Should be on the next slide.
Yep. Okay. So the benefits of quality early childhood education. A lot of people, if you're not in the field, you don't understand how much brain development happens in those first 5 years of life, 90% of it. However, the only way children's brains can develop is if they feel safe and secure and loved and are in high quality relationships with at least one adult. So whether it's a parent, a grandparent, a neighbor, a teacher, that's what grows their brains. It literally stops their brain development if you don't have those things. High turnover in a childcare program is going to rupture that every single time. Those kids are not going to know who to trust. Kids who are in poverty are at a higher risk, and that's not their parents' fault. All kinds of different things, a fire, an accident, anything can really cause, they're called ACEs, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Anything can cause that, but the caring adults are that buffer for that, and that helps those children with resilience and creating the foundation of all their academic learning later. We also are the ones who are going to notice those first things when there is maybe something not developing quite right. Let's have a conversation. Let's get this child referred to Birth to 3 or to the school system. If they don't have teachers that know what to do, or you don't have directors and owners that know what to do, those kids fall through the cracks. And then they get to school and then they need that much more intervention. We also will have, and it's not, you're making $13 an hour, you're stressed out, you're working full time, you probably have a part-time job and you probably have a child. You have a kid in your classroom that is just, you just don't know what to do. You don't go talk to your director, you try all the things. That teacher is going to come to the end of their rope and going to come to that director and say, it's either the kid or me. It's not the fault of the director for saying, well, I've got this wait list. I guess it's the kid. And it's, I'm keeping my teacher. And that's not okay. And that's why we need to fund our systems. Because again, that brain development, these children's brains are developing, and this is what matters in their little lives. So this is a video that also talks about some of the other implications.
Brain development story has been powerful influence on the growth of investments and programs to promote early learning and enhance school readiness. But the brain does not exist by itself. Connecting the brain to the rest of the body is critically important. Early childhood experience is as much about lifelong physical and mental health as they are about early learning and readiness to succeed in school. All biological systems, all of them are highly interconnected, and all of these systems are primed to adapt to whatever the environment is throwing us. Think about this. As a team of highly skilled athletes, each has a role to play, but they depend upon each other. They influence each other's responses. Getting good team, it's how they operate together is the key to their success. When we are stressed, every cell in the body is working overtime. The brain is the master control system that detects threat and manages the response in all of the different systems. It sends signals to the cardiovascular system to increase heart rate and blood pressure. Signals are picked up by metabolic system, increase the availability of blood sugar, to provide more energy stores for the body. The immune system is active to be on alert for the possibility of a wound and the need to protect against infection. The neuroendocrine system is activated to increase levels of stress hormones in the bloodstream. All of these provide feedback to the brain. The stress response system is designed to deal with an acute threat or challenge. But when the stress continues at a very high level, then these biological responses actually start to have a wear and tear effect on the body. This is where stress explains chronic disease. The science is really clear. Most costly chronic diseases in our society have their roots in early childhood. Cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and depression, three of many diseases that are associated with greater adversity early. Those three diseases together consume more than $600 billion of healthcare costs a year. So we have to think about preventing disease and promoting health. It doesn't begin with exercising or eating better in your 30 or 40 years. Health promotion and preventing disease begins prenatally and it extends into the early childhood period. Connecting the brain to the rest of the body has very important implications for early childhood policy. If we look at the basic science-based principles focused on early learning, strengthening relationships, building skills, reducing sources of stress, those are the same principles that increase the likelihood for lifelong physical and mental health. And when we think about the major sources of adversity early in life, we talk about poverty, discrimination, exposure to violence, maltreatment, child abuse, and neglect. Although each of these sources of adversity differ from each other, biologically, the effect on the body is the same. Systemic racism, dangerous and divisive bias, and everyday discrimination employs a level of stress and adversity in families of color raising children that is present all the time. It's never too late to make things happen, and we are biologically prepared to adapt to everything we live with. But we need to look upstream at more systemic issues that are the sources of this enormous burden of threat and hardship. We have to go into policies and resource allocations from the educational sector and the health sector and the services sector. Pediatric primary care is the one domain where almost all children are seen from birth on and provides critical opportunity for engagement with families, developing relationships, promoting health and development, and is the ideal frontline opportunity to connect families to needed services as early as possible, which can be most effective. Pediatrics alone is not going to provide all of the supports that many families need. The opportunity is to move away from asking, how do we connect pediatric primary care to early childhood programs? And in a different way, we change our mindset to say, how do we build new early childhood ecosystem in which pediatrics is an integrated part? The brain development story has been a powerful influence. The same principles, the same concepts are also affecting the early foundations of physical and mental health that will last for a lifetime.
So there was a handout, it's got the ACEs and it kind of talks a little bit more about that. I did not make all that many copies compared to the others. So if we could get more copies from the Y maybe, I think we need a few more. So that goes into more of the ACEs and what ACEs exactly are. We kind of kept that out of this more, is a much larger, broader conversation. But relationships are the key, as they had said, the relationships between the children and their parent, the relationship between the children and their primary caregivers, the relationship between those caregivers and the parents are all extremely important. We, as the childcare professionals, are the ones that are walking next to the parents and helping and guide them. Those of us who have been in the field for a long time have noticed a huge shift. Parents now have little to no experience with young children. They did not grow up babysitting. They did not grow up with big families. They did not grow up with lots of cousins. I have never, until this year, I had never had so many parents who had never held a baby before their own child. but it's happening more and more often because again, we don't have the expanded families and communities that we used to. And so we are even looked more to as a resource to hold hands and help with just general like questions about like child development and is this okay? Is this normal? When do they get teeth? You know, all those different things. And that's what we're also there for. So not only are we caring for and educating the children, we're caring for and walking with and partnering with the parents. And we are working with our communities also to let them know. And we are that bridge to the K-12 system. We are the ones working with those teachers at school, with those kids with special needs. We have kids till they're 12. That's another piece that keeps getting overlooked. Kids need care until they're about 12 years old. And so we have them in the summer. We have them before and after school. And as more and more of us are leaving, these kids are going home to their houses and they're not interacting with other people. They are, you know, watching TV or whatever it is. And so really looking at those relationships as the buffer. And that is another key reason we also don't get paid enough. We're getting paid $13 an hour to also be psychologists and to, you know, be parent mediators and all those different things. And the other thing key is, yes, some of the ideas being floated are to have younger people in charge of classrooms. We have parents who are going through custody battles. We have child abuse and neglect where they call us and they ask us questions. We have parents who are incarcerated. We have, you know, and then you have children who are biting and fighting with each other. And like, how is a 16-year-old going to talk to that parent about how this is typical, this is what we're doing, and this is how we're going to move on from it? That parent is not going to trust a 16-year-old, nor should they. And so that's part of it too. And the other piece is, what are children watching children? What is happening to those 16-year-olds when they're trying to take care of young children and they aren't able to meet their needs successfully? What is it doing to their brains and everything like that too? Also, I like to say, if you have 16-year-olds left in classrooms, you will, birth rate will go to 0 because they will never have children. So yep, next one. Go ahead. And then this is back to you, right, Angela? Yep.
So we talked a lot about children benefits. A lot of us are in this for the benefits of the children, but there are other benefits for families too. So there's going to be household impacts. If a family is able to have a quality childcare program, they're going to be able to increase their household income because they're able to go to work. You're able to trust where your child is. You're able to work more productive hours. It's going to be a much healthier work environment for them, knowing that their child is in a place that they can trust. These working hours, again, are focused. They're now I'm all lost here. So lack of the options for childcare is going to force families to choose between their careers and then going to staying home with their children. And every day we should always choose our children first if we don't trust where they're going. So we need to give them that option. I stress a lot about choices. Families should have a choice. It should be a choice if a parent wants to stay home, but it also should be a choice for them to have quality early childhood education in a licensed program, whether that's a family-based or a group-based. There should be options available to them. Without those, they're going to be choosing variety options. It's going to cause family stress because you know how it is. If you don't have a place for your kids to go, you're stressed out. You're stressed out at home. You're stressed out at work. That stress is going to build off those relationships that Corrine mentioned. So it's really good to have positive relationship building with them and having consistency at work. So then we talk about the communities and businesses. So a lot of people like to look at numbers because numbers seem to matter, even though people should be the top priority. The return on investment for early childhood education, every dollar you spend, we can get $7 to $14 back on that investment. That's good business. I don't know anybody who would not get in on that with that good business plan. So we need to be able to invest in them. So and I want to just clarify that $7 to $14 is a large range because it depends on the age of the child and if there's different needs for that child. So that does kind of depend on that cost. So childcare may seem like it's private. It's for families and that should be where it's left, but it's not. It's a direct impact on productivity at work, which affects businesses. We need to ensure that their families are able to go to work and contribute to our community. There's the saying, and my staff are wearing a lot of the shirts, we're the workforce behind the workforce, which is a really just general but good point. Without early childhood educators and places for children to go, people can't go to work, and we need to be able to have our people at work so our community can function. So a few things that we've talked about, there's going to be if you do pull out of the workforce and you're not able to go to work because you're staying home, Typically that tends to be the mothers in the household. They're now going to be behind on their careers. They're going to be behind on promotions. They're just not able to maybe be fully satisfied because could be something they enjoy. I enjoy going to work every day, but I also enjoy being home with my kids. So there should be that nice work-life balance. Let's see. Do you have something to add on this? I know this was a big one, but right now, one of the things I do want to talk about or wanted to mention actually before I let Corinne, if she has anything, the national economy currently loses 122 billion annual dollars from loss of productivity, loss of earnings and revenue. Wisconsin is estimated at an annual of an impact of 4 billion. So clearly, again, we're losing money on something we're asking to try to reinvest in.
So on this sheet that has a representative, it actually goes more into all those different impacts. So you can look at those yourself. But really, at the end of the day, what's happening is employers are not able to recruit and retain their own employees because we have pulled out so many people from the workforce. We're forcing them to stay home. Wisconsin used to be a leader. There were over 70% of women with children ages 6 and under in the workforce. We bottomed out during COVID, and we still have not raised above 60%. To go along with that, our unemployment rate is really, really low. And because of that, we need people who are no longer even being counted as unemployed to come back out of wherever they are so that they can re-enter the workforce. 10% of women with children is a lot of people that are not working that want to work. And that's the thing, is most of these people want to be able to work. It also affects your ability to retire because all those years you're not working, you aren't putting anything towards your retirement. And so that's a lot of the reason behind employers. And we also want to be careful because all employers deserve to be able to have good employees, not just large businesses who can afford to offer childcare as a benefit. Your nonprofits, they have no ability to do that. Your government entities, your fire, your police, the road workers who are out there right now plowing the roads, none of those would be able to access some of the answers that are being proposed by having an employer tax credit. And so in order to make it equitable, and so that every single person needing care can access care, and that all of our businesses, including our really small businesses, like your restaurants and your locally owned Main Street businesses, we could do something like Vermont does. And what they do is they actually have a payroll tax, and every single employer pays into this payroll tax, and every single employee pays a teeny tiny bit also and matches it. They passed this last January, went into effect in April. Vermont is tiny compared to Wisconsin for population. They have already added 1,000 childcare spots since April. And they also did it by raising the wages of the educators. Their turnover is almost nothing now. And their quality has increased dramatically. The amount, that 1,000 slots is like 10,000 here in Wisconsin. So there are some really good solutions that we could be doing by looking at different ways of funding so that everybody who, as Angela said, everybody benefits because, everybody needs care of some sort, whether it's your employee that's, next to you or not next to you because they didn't have care for the day, or you want to go to the dentist, but, they're closed on Tuesdays because they don't have any staff on Tuesdays because there's no childcare. So really looking outside of that and having those conversations with people about, they're like, I don't have kids or I paid for it. My response when somebody tells me that they paid for childcare, I'm like, no, you didn't. Your child's teacher did because they shouldered the rest of it on their back. And that's not okay. I'm like, are you going back now and giving them some back pay? Now that they're going, I didn't know. I'm like, but now you do. So now are you going to go give them a nice bonus? Nobody's done it yet. But yeah, so that's a lot of it. Just really looking at the different pieces and like looking at childcare as the spoke of a wheel and how we touch every single thing. During COVID, like everybody begged us to stay open and we were so essential. Well, why are we not essential now? If we're not here now, you're not going to be able to work either. Anything else on that?
No, did you want to do the statistics for Wisconsin? As far as, I don't know, we passed it, but it's just Wisconsin statistics. There's anything extra? I think we covered. Nope, we're good. We will touch on Fond du Lac County statistics a little bit since that's our area. So overall, there's been a 37% decline in regulated care programs. There's currently 33, 28 group and 5 family-based. As most of us are aware, one large group center recently closed their doors. The day after our phone did not stop ringing, we had about 40 new families on our wait list. Some were probably already on the wait list, just getting an update. Our phone didn't stop. These families were looking for all different types of care, before and after school, part-time, full-time, varied schedules. Unfortunately, You've seen my wait list. We're not accepting any new families for probably 2 years. So that's definitely a thing, a big hardship. There's 258 fewer licensed spots in Fond du Lac County. That does include the 100 that was from that program closing, and that's from 2022. Corinne mentioned earlier how our population is so much bigger than her area, but we only have 3 more programs in hers. 103,000 people approximately. We have about 5,262 per the census. And if all of them needed licensed care, I know not all of them may, but we need to plan for that. There is only approximately 1,523 licensed spots in Fond du Lac County. That's family and group centers. Clearly a huge shortage. So that gap is roughly between 55 to 60% in gap for that. So we really need to do better. I mean, these families, I always wonder what these families are doing every day. And I can't even imagine that day that they got that message from their program call or closing had to be one of the hardest days of their lives. And I could imagine feeling that pain and that struggle as a parent. And then for those employees, even though, again, we're talking about how we have a shortage of employees, but we also need to be able to pay them all. So these employees are calling to find spots. It was, I couldn't imagine. So I feel for the community and these families. So for childcare, oh, this is also a quick graph. Sorry, it's a little blurry, but I think there is a handout on it. But it does show about our median income in Fond du Lac County, the median expenses. And it shows that if you go to a family-based center, you will only roughly have about $331 for extra expenditures. That could be shopping, it could be your coffees you might like, whatever that may be, the oil changes, because that's not in your standard expenses. So those are things to cover. If you go to a group center, and this does give for 1 infant and a 3-year-old, you're in a shortage of $198. So that means you don't have enough money to pay everything. So these families can't afford us to increase our rates, but we can't afford not to if we don't receive the funding. The childcare investment, that's you.
So childcare across the country has never really been invested in, except for during World War II. There was a robust system. And so about 4 years ago, when COVID hit, the federal government had a huge influx of money to go into childcare. One of the ways that our state spent that money was on a program called Child Care Counts, and that was with those of us that were stakeholders in childcare. We met with Department of Children and Family, and we helped create the program and, worked through it. The budget prior to that was where we kind of started. And then the COVID money came in, and that's how we were able to do it. So part of the money goes to wages and part of the money goes to operational costs. That is the only reason that our wages have gone up $3 an hour on average. And my son, who's 18, makes $18 an hour. He makes more than I do. He makes more than almost probably all the childcare educators in here do. And that's not okay. We are bottom 2% of all wage earners in the entire country. That means dog walkers make more than we do. Yeah. And so that right there should appall everyone, because how could you possibly think that you can recruit and retain high quality, caring, loving, giving people to work with our most vulnerable for $13 an hour? No paid time off, which I got puked on today. We get puked on, we get sneezed on, all the things. And then we don't have time we can't take time off to take care of ourselves when we get sick because we don't have it. We do, health insurance, most of us are because of our spouses, or we are under 26, or because we make low enough to qualify for Badger Care. And so, it's really actually a very sad situation to look at, that we accept this, that we allow our government to do this, because it's not our fault. For every single $1 an hour raise that we want to give our employees, we have to charge parents between $10 and $15 more a week per child. That adds up. So if we wanted to get up to $23 an hour, we are looking at $100 to $150 a week increases in tuition. That will force almost every single parent out of the workforce. Or, hey, I'm going to get a nanny instead because it's going to be about the same price. And so really we need to look at that. So we really need to look at our funding. And this next year is a budget. And we are going to be asking for robust investments in the budget because it's not fair to us who are in the field. It's not fair to the children. What are we doing to our children? It's not fair to our families. It's not fair to our employers. And it's not fair to our community members.